Wait, you're saying that the river is dried up and you can't grow any wheat or vegetables? Well, let's check it out. Mr. Mayor, we'll be back as soon as we can. And don't worry, we're ready for anything, including the podcast. Let's go! Hey, I'm Veronica Taylor.
And I'm Rena Taylor.
And this is
The Trainer's Guide. Today's episode,
Wake Up, Snorlax! Well, here we are with episode 38.
One episode closer to the finish line.
You always say that every time.
I know.
We're almost finished, but we're not. We're in the middle of it all.
I think it's because each time we look, like when I'm scrolling through to get to this episode, to the next episode,
Yes.
I scroll down all the way.
Right.
And so we are closer to 52 now than we were before.
When we were at episode 1, we were much further away.
Yeah. So I don't know why we really aren't that much further than we were last week. We're just going one at a time, but it just feels like we're closer.
It's so funny. We are. That's the way life is. You're
Yeah.
always closer to the end. But you know how they
that's
say,
sad.
once begun, now half done.
That's
so
true.
This is a prime example of that.
That's right. I also think, we say this each week, but this is my favorite episode.
I do love it.
I think hands down, this one's my favorite, actually.
Really?
I think so. I think, there's just a lot going on in it that I feel like, I don't know. And Snorlax is one of my favorite Pokemon. So
That's true. I was thinking
have a
of
special connection to it.
I want to say that we were just in Edison last weekend in New Jersey, and there was a lot going on there. It was a
Yes.
crazy, wonderful convention for Collecticon. We saw a lot of people that we've met before, and then we met a lot of new people. So really wonderful.
And unlike the town in this episode, Edison is just booming with really great restaurants.
Bounty.
There's no shortage
Yes.
of food.
No, it was great, and we had a couple great meals there with great people outside, even, which was really nice.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, we don't know this yet, but as we are walking along, we don't know that this town is bereft of food.
Well,
but we find that out in a few minutes.
They know from the intro.
Yes. So our trio is walking along with Pikachu keeping a, quote, careful watch.
Yeah, very funny. Pikachu sleeping. Everybody's they're walking along. They're on their journey. They've been walking for a while. You can tell. And Ash, Misty, and Brock come across a hippie sitting on a rock.
I call it like a groovy musician, man.
He's like an oldish guy, just hanging out.
A great crystal
And they
necklace.
basically ask him, are you by yourself? And he goes, I got my music. And he just starts, he whips out this little Pokeball flute and he starts playing, a little ditty on his flute. And then after he's done, which is one of my favorite things ever, he's like, now that you've heard my music, you have to give me food. And they're all like, what? This wasn't a free concert? And he goes, isn't my flute playing worth a sandwich? Which is like, what? And then anyway, we find out that Ash, Misty, and Brock don't have any food and they don't have a crumb.
He says,
to give him.
well, how about a cookie? And they say, we don't even have a crumb. It's a really nice comeback.
It's good. And
but then they leave him
truth.
because they have nothing.
Yeah, and he goes, oh, another free concert. Which this is very similar. Anybody who's from New York knows that if somebody comes up and says, would you like a free CD or do you want to hear some of my music? You
So
never
true.
say yes because they
Right.
will always try and sell it to you.
Once they hand it to you, they want money.
Yeah, exactly.
But they deserve some money because it is.
Totally. You have to pay artists. But
That's right.
just like this hippie, they do kind of trick you into it. Now, it's not the most honest way of
Selling something.
making a buck.
Also, these guys are all walking along and are so hungry and their stomach is rumbling. And I realize that now mine is starting to grumble too.
Oh, how fun.
Anything when food is talked about, I start getting hungry.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, you're just experiencing, you're living vicariously
I am
through.
Ash. Oh, so hungry. Ugh, and his stomach is...
Yeah, well, good thing our mics are amazing and have a good noise canceling feature.
True.
So it will hopefully not pick up your stomach growls.
That's right. Now, Team Rocket comes up to our groovy musician man.
So, yes, so Ash, Misty, and Brock kind of go on their way, and they go into the town, and they find out that there's no food in the town at all. And then we cut back, or maybe they're just hungry. Anyway, we cut back to the hippie, and Team Rocket are there. And he's playing the same song again. He's doing it to them. And they are not as enthused as...
No, they're a bit rude to him, actually.
Yeah.
And they say, what is this? You just stop people, play weird music, and expect to get something?
And expect food?
Yeah.
And then Meowth is like, you should ask for music lessons or something.
Yeah, instead.
Anyway, and then they just walk off.
And the hippie man says, they've got bad vibes. They should respect their elders at least.
Yeah, which is also true.
But so this reminds me of my favorite all-time fairy tale, where obviously there's always sisters, and one of them is treated poorly, and she has to go out and get things, and there's this haggard old lady by the pond or by the fountain, and the girl gives her food and drink, and this haggard woman bestows upon her the gift of pearls and diamonds falling out of her mouth when she speaks. And her sisters are greedy, and they go back, and now that woman is in another costume, and
because I think they're find
mean
out
to her
because the sister comes back and they want that too.
That's right.
So they go down looking for this old woman, and the old woman's disguised herself as something else.
Yeah, and so they're just mean to her. Actually, I think I have it backwards. Sorry, she's kind of a beautiful woman when the girl gives her something, and then she's more haggardy, and the sisters are mean to her, and they've got frogs and toads and snakes coming out of their mouths. And the point is, after all this, is that you should always be kind to people, right? That you can't be thinking about what you want from them. You have to be kind because that's just the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I do think that this kind of, we meet this hippie right away, and you don't know if he'll come back into the story. And spoiler alert, he does. And so you do kind of have to, live your life just being kind and treating people how you'd like to be treated, because you just never know, where your experiences and where your interactions will take you.
Right.
And you just never know if, that one time that you show kindness to somebody, maybe that will come back and benefit you in the future.
Right.
I mean, I think that kind of goes towards what happens even right away next in the episode. So because Ash, Misty, and Brock are in the town, and there's no food. There's nothing in the bakery. Nobody has any ingredients to make food. And so they're all just hungry and tired. And the mayor comes out and says, why don't you, he basically invites them to his house and gives them a big meal first without expecting anything in return. He just doesn't want to see them, go hungry. And then we find out that the river has dried up. And for the last 2 weeks, it just mysteriously dried up. And so now the people in the town are unable to make any food or for other people, or even it's hard for them to get it for themselves too.
Right. Nothing is growing. There's no wheat or vegetables.
Right.
There's no water. Also, it's interesting that the mayor has food stored up.
Yeah, I know.
So, which I think all of us, especially living in hazard-prone areas, you do have a store of kind of food and water that you can use in an emergency. And luckily, he has enough to share.
Yeah, I just hope that everybody in the town is also getting food. It didn't seem like they were...
We don't see anyone else.
It didn't seem like the people that they talked to, the two other people that they talked to were having problems. It's just that they didn't have any food to give.
To offer. Oh, you mean the people who worked there?
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. But they just couldn't sell anything.
Yeah, it seemed like that. But we find out, and maybe this is something that happens more often. So maybe that's why they're also prepared. Or maybe the mayor is just...
generous.
A prepper.
Yes, he has everything set.
He's just ready. So Misty says, we have to repay you for your delicious meal. So we're going to go figure out what's going on.
Why the water has stopped
Right.
and
so
dried up.
they decide to go upriver.
Right. They walk up the riverbed.
And discover that a giant Snorlax is sleeping. Well, first they have to go through all these thorns.
Yeah, so at the top, at the head of the river, they come upon this thorny brush that's overgrown. And around the corner is a Snorlax snoring away.
And we find out that it's basically blocking the river. It's
Right,
like clogging up.
Which is what I've always thought that's just what Snorlax do. They stop
I think
the
they
river.
do. They stop rivers and they block roads. I think even in the video games too, they're always blocking a road.
They're very big.
And you've got to do something to get it to move. And what do you do?
Right.
Because it's a heavy sleeper.
Yes, that's true.
It's a heavy sleeper.
Apparently it's 1,000 pounds.
Some can weigh up to 1,000 pounds, which I feel like sometimes we all feel like you weigh 1,000 pounds and you can just go to sleep and you never want to wake up. You just want to keep sleeping.
And in this case, Snorlax only wakes to eat, which I think we all wish we could just do. And then go back to sleep. So they're trying to gently wake Snorlax.
They're like shaking it. Ash then tries a megaphone, which is really loud for everybody, but Snorlax doesn't wake up. They try to push it around or
They're
like pull it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Ash tries to catch it with a pokeball.
And with a big pokeball, go! And then it just bounces kind of lazily off Snorlax's
Which does
stomach.
one of my big questions that I'm always trying to answer for Snorlax is if it's, well, actually, my main question is Snorlax furry or smooth?
Oh, yeah.
Because in the picture, it looks smooth, like a dolphin.
Right.
But I don't know. I want to sleep on a Snorlax, but I'm not sure if that would be comfortable. But somebody just recently brought up an interesting fact that they think that Snorlax would be bouncy like a trampoline. And I've never thought about that before.
Right.
But this kind of, when the Pokeball is thrown at it, it does kind of bounce off of its stomach in a very, bouncy, rubbery ball way.
The only thing you could do is have someone in your family lie down and toss gently a ball at its stomach. And whatever that family member...
That's true.
See what happens with the ball.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like a Snorlax,
I'm going to have to just throw things at people's stomachs.
Gently, with permission.
Sure. Of course.
And probably not
obviously.
when they're sleeping. But maybe.
But maybe. I know some heavy sleepers, so I think it could work out.
Okay.
But meanwhile, everybody's
taking
trying
a
to
turn.
do stuff. Everybody's trying to do stuff to get Snorlax to wake up. And Jesse and James enter
as reporters.
The scene.
Yes.
It's amazing. They say we're going to do, what is it?
The
Z form, go in
a Z formation.
Z formation, which never
Who knows what
clarified.
that means.
But then they come in and James has a microphone and Jesse has a camera.
They're like news reporters.
And he's going, today we're going to find out. Today we're seeing the Snorlax. Here it is, sleeping. This is what it looks like, asleep. And now we're going to wake it up. And anyway, it's just like...
hilarious.
Truly some of the best Team Rocket stuff is in this episode.
And also then Meowth is coming in the balloon with
they
the
do the
ultra
whole
deluxe
motto.
balloon bang bang. Coming
That's
in.
Right. But they do also the whole motto with
On
the
mic.
microphone.
Yes, back and forth.
And it's so good. And each of their poses while the other one is talking. Anyway, it's just incredible. And then, yes, Meowth comes in with the ultra bang bang.
Ultra deluxe balloon bang bang. I love it. And then they're like, we can see Snorlax on cable because they're trying to hook Snorlax up to the balloon and lift it off.
Yeah.
It, of course, doesn't work.
But Ash, Misty, and Brock decide to help because, for the greater good.
Which is getting Snorlax out of
and
there.
they want Snorlax to move to get the river to flow. So they're helping out. And it doesn't work, but they still decide to kind of work together to come up with some other ways of moving Snorlax.
They try the alarm clock. Doesn't work.
An alarm clock on a fishing pole.
Yes, of course, because you want to
classic
right over it to its face.
They try what else?
A water bucket or a bucket of water.
A bucket of water, and
then that doesn't work. So they decide.
Oh my god! And then Jessie comes up with the most brilliant plan, and she says, in the old fairy tale Sleeping Beauty, with whom I identify, hilarious. a noble prince must kiss a Sleeping Beauty.
Yes. So a kiss from the noblest Pokemon.
And so that they decide that that's going to be, that's it. So who will kiss Snorlax? Again, see, this is why this is my favorite episode. I do think that if this hasn't convinced you, you really should pause us and watch the episode and then come back, because we're not making any of this up.
No,
and
it's
it is
so
10
good.
times better
And
once you've seen it.
The lips on all the Pokemon
this
make it.
is the thing. So they're trying to pick which of their Pokemon is the most noble to who will get the honor of kissing Snorlax. So Ash and Brock decide that Misty's Horsey is the noblest.
Yes.
Because it's like a prince's horse or something. Which
Yes,
makes
it's quite noble.
Sense.
Yeah, it's a horse.
I guess.
So she decides.
Finds Horsey.
And
she throws it. And who shall appear but Psyduck? And it comes out of the Pokeball, lips puckered.
Yes.
And
beak lips.
Beak lips ready to go. And it soars through the air and lands right smack dab
on the kisser. Yeah.
A big smoocheroonie. And nothing happens. But I think Psyduck is kind of enamored.
Completely dazed and blushing. Yeah. So, and then that's the end of that.
That was it. And she's like, oh my God, you're not noble at all. And then Jesse and James are trying to figure out or they're putting together their noblest Pokemon. And we get an amazing shot of Ekans and coughing or wheezing. I never remember. We get an amazing shot of those two Pokemon with their giant lips.
Really giant lips coming out.
Ash, Misty, Brock are imagining what that looks like.
But they're not chosen because it's Meowth. In this amazing prince outfit.
Again, how do they have this? But Meowth has been dressed up as like a prince, and they say Meowth is the noblest. His kiss is the strongest, or something. And so I think they too kind of throw Meowth onto Snorlax.
Yeah, they're really pushing it right on there, and then the hygiene. He says, and then he smooshed right for the smooch.
Snorlax, he smooches it.
Yeah, and
he does it.
He too is dazed.
But also I think just more shocked.
Yeah.
And Snorlax too does have a bit of a response and kind of like stirs and moves a little bit.
And then Brock says, well, how'd you look if you got kissed by Meowth? And Ash says, I'd look for a new mouth. Funny.
Poor Meowth.
But then Ash discovers this kind of, the thing that you hang on your hotel room door that says do not disturb.
There's a do not disturb sign under Snorlax.
Yeah, that he fishes out, kind of. And it says, in case of emergency, wake with a poké-flute.
Right.
And so...
And who has a poké-flute that we know of?
Our hippie musician friend.
The old hippie musician.
I don't even know how old he is.
Oh, I don't know, but they say
he has long hair.
He's long, like grayish hair. So, but people with gray hair are not necessarily old, but that's just our trainers being biased.
So they run off to get him.
Find the hippie, and Team Rocket go running after them. And this is where I think it comes in again that you have to always be, just on your best behavior when you're meeting new people and all that kind of stuff. Because Ash is trying to convince the hippie to come with him, and Team Rocket come, and they're kind of pulling at the hippie to come with them, even though they're all kind of going in the same place, so it doesn't fully make sense.
Right, because they were working together before, but now suddenly they're not working together.
Right.
So who knows why they had that shift. But this, as we keep calling him, this hippie, groovy musician man is in the middle, and they are actually pulling both of his arms in different directions.
Yeah, and then they decide that even because he has no say in this, that the only way to, settle this argument is by a battle.
Right.
So Jesse calls out Ekans.
Arbok versus Pidgeotto.
Versus Pidgeotto, thank you. And Pidgeotto immediately wind gust attack, and it turns into like this big tornado.
Yeah.
And they get whisked away. I can't believe it.
And it's that fast.
And that's it. And they're gone.
And then the hippie guy goes and is like, oh, it's...
He plays the flute. He goes up and he's like, hey, Snorlax, I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Your girth is blowing my mind.
That's my favorite line. Your girth is blowing my mind. Amazing.
If they ever do like a Pokemon-themed gym, like an actual
Yeah, that would be a
workout
great
gym,
shirt.
that would be it.
Yeah.
Your girth is blowing my mind.
Because it's a good thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Anyway.
The music wakes up Snorlax.
He plays his music.
And it stretches in this, again, for your gym idea, it stretches in this wonderful way, a little routine that it has, and it just walks off.
Yeah, walks off. And then we see behind Snorlax that there are more thorns. And all these thorns are
still
another impediment that's blocking the river. And Ash and the gang are like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to clear this all. And then all of a sudden they start moving and we find out that Snorlax is eating the thorns.
Right.
And the thorns are its favorite snack.
Right.
And Snorlax eats 900 pounds of food and then goes back to sleep.
Right. We don't see that yet because it's munching away.
Yeah.
And all this beautiful, clear water begins to flow.
Little by
and
little, it comes back.
Yeah, the village comes back to life and everyone's
Saved.
fine.
Yeah.
It ends pretty abruptly like that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I find interesting is that it's only been 2 weeks that the river's been dried up and this town already doesn't have any produce.
Well,
they can't grow anything. Like how fast do crops grow in
I
this
will
town?
say, just to bring up a tiny thing, remember, you were very, very small, but back on September 11th, when we couldn't get out from our apartment, we couldn't leave our area, and the stores, the shelves were emptied within days.
Yeah.
And you would think, oh, everybody's got food or whatever. No, they didn't. No one could make deliveries. Nothing could come in or out. So even within, I think it was 2 days, we went down to our little bodega and there was nothing there. Yeah. So you can see how things could just clean out so fast. None of us really, you don't realize that. So it is something to keep in mind. I think, too, the fact that Snorlax eats the thorns that are blocking the water, it's a kind of eat local,
Totally.
Eat what's there, what's
organic,
growing. Well,
free-range thorns.
Well, yeah, but it's Snorlax eats what's available, which is what's growing around him, or it, I should say. So that's another thing. You don't have to like bring in food from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Just it's eating what's available and what's there.
And I find it interesting too that it eats another like thing that's blocking the path. Mm-hmm. Like it blocks the path and then it eats the things that block the path.
Yeah. That's it.
That's not like the most eloquent way of saying it, but it is really interesting that it
falls
does that.
asleep and can sleep once a month, or for a month or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the point is that these thorns probably do grow up while it's sleeping, and then it wakes and eats them and then goes back to sleep.
Yeah, and I think too that's like a great also connection to what would that be called? Like environmental management, because the hippie has this timer or this alarm thing that he has that alerts him because he goes and wakes up the Snorlax every month. Right. And so this month he's a little late and that's why, this happened. And so isn't it so important to have people who are constantly, like a park ranger who's going around and making sure everything is good, or checking on the animals, checking on the plants and things, because the thing is, the environment is quite self-sufficient. Animals and nature, they coexist and they just do their own thing. But sometimes, you need somebody to check in and make sure that everything's running the way it needs to be. Right. Because sometimes it might not.
We're all dependent upon one another and to make sure that it's running in the cycle that it should.
Absolutely.
We just watched this great, which is not really related, but kind of, but for the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, they had this great bit about the snails and this whole snail farm. And so you can see too that this is someone who is managing the environment, and snails can be bad in some areas, but here they're kind of raising them in a great way. So anyway, it was really fantastic. I think too, when you have a lot of rabbits in your yard, rabbits, they can eat a lot of your vegetables. So you have to figure out how to partition things off so they can eat, but you can also have food for yourself. Right. All of this is management to make sure the cycle works.
Yeah, that's it. And so Snorlax kind of helps them save the day from itself. And the mayor says, let's have a banquet with whatever food they have. I guess all of his storage stuff, they're going to have a banquet.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, and then Jesse and James are like, they're all beaten up because of their, being windswept around and all this kind of stuff. And they see the hippie again.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really ask, they don't ask for help, but they do ask if the Snorlax is going, because the Snorlax has just gone back to sleep. So they ask when the Snorlax might wake up again. And he says it wakes up every moon.
Once a moon. So that means once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one might be that they come upon might be another Snorlax. That's what I'm not clear about.
I'm not sure.
There are many that this musician is in charge of.
Yeah, he tends to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he's a
they're
bit of a
exhausted.
herder.
He is a herder.
Yeah.
He's a herder.
Herder.
A flute.
A Snorlax herder.
Yeah.
Like a shepherd. A
Yeah.
Snorlax herd. Anyway.
But then he basically tells him, it's asleep. Try again in a month. And they collapse from exhaustion. And the last thing we see is the Snorlax turning over,
yes.
and
Rolling
and we get
them.
the sense that it rolls on top of
I
them.
know.
We don't see it, but you hear it.
They just can't catch a break.
They can't, and they were so good this episode.
I
They
know.
were so good.
So funny.
It was so good. But yeah, I love this episode, and I love Snorlax. I still don't know if it's furry or smooth, but
I don't know either. I was thinking about this today, and I wanted to kind of close this off with my one tiny thought, which is that perhaps if we all just take a minute to contemplate what a tiny speck we each are in this vast universe, and yet how one tiny gesture of kindness can make an extraordinary difference. So I think I will close off with that we can all think about that in this chaotic world. We're all coming together to celebrate the Olympics and each other and becoming our best and striving and dreaming and watching others accomplish their goals and their dreams.
yeah, absolutely.
So I think this is a good time for the Poke Wrap Up,
Where we hear from you, the Pokemon community.
We asked you to send in your favorite Pokemon stories, memories, and inspirations.
And here is one of this week's.
Hi, this is Lindsay in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I've been a Pokemon fan since the franchise originally hit our shores in the late 90s. And today it still inspires me and honestly helps me keep my sanity in this crazy world that we live in. Vaporeon is my favorite and will always be my favorite. And Veronica, I would just like to thank you again for gracing us with your presence on Podzilla 1985 back when you were here visiting us for CapeCon. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing that with us. I loved being in Cape Girardeau. I really loved spending time with you. And I can't wait to come back.
And Lindsay also included in her email to us that she has a gigantic collection of Pokemon things, including Team Rocket's Magikarp submarine and the Meowth balloon.
Things we never knew existed.
And are those toys? What do they look like?
We need pictures.
How big are they? They cannot be life-size, but
Ooh, maybe they are.
I'm intrigued.
Send photos.
Please, and we will share them. We'll pass them along. But thank you so much for such a wonderful story. I'm glad you didn't cry.
Yeah. And we want to hear from all of you.
Email us a short recording or write to us at trainersguidepod@gmail.com.
And try to keep it short, maybe 30 seconds or so. We don't want to have to edit.
Oh, and please include your first name and where you're from.
Well, that about wraps up today's episode of The Trainer's Guide. And as they say, to be continued. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey that is The Trainer's Guide.
As you know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you're listening now.
And if you subscribe, comment, and rate the podcast, it helps others find the show and keeps us on the air.
Thank you so much in advance for your generosity and all of your amazing support.
Trainer's Guide is a production of Boom Integrated.
We are co-executive producing this along with
the amazing Adrian Glover,
and the incomparable Robin Lai. I'm your host, Veronica Taylor.
and I'm your host, Rena Taylor.
And this has been The Trainer's Guide. We'll see you out there on the road.